Alrighty, 131 on the agenda, and a new K through 12 Christian school has been announced in the works, and it's Garden City Academy. And Josh McPherson here, pastor at Grace City Church here, to talk about the plans that were just announced to the congregation over the weekend. And so, Josh, thanks for coming in on the program today.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
Why a Christian school for Wenatchee? What's the genesis of this idea?
It's a great question. I think at the end of the day, it boils down to the kids. We love kids. As a church, of course, we love the family. And as a church leadership team, we came to the point where we didn't think we could say seriously that we love and support the family if we weren't providing some means by which to help the family educate their children, but not just educate their children with 2s and 4s and numbers and facts, but educate their children within the parameters and the environment, the set of values that many Christian parents hold dearly. And so as we talked about the challenge of starting a school and the many hurdles and roadblocks and the amount of work and blood, sweat, and tears it would take, it was very off-putting at first. But there was a conversation I had with a grandma, and it came after we'd spent the day visiting schools around the area. We visited 6, 7, 8 schools in the state. They're all incredible. But we came home from one in particular. It was just very discouraging, looking at the economic reality that Christian school challenges face across the state. Without school choice legislatively, without tax dollars following children wherever they go, the state kind of sucks like a vacuum many resources out of a community, leaving them with very little left over to create alternative options if they wanted them. So it's a very difficult economic challenge. And I just told the grandma over dinner, I said, it's impossible. I can't do it. And she just looked at me. This was a grandma who's committed. She homeschooled 5 kids. She's like bought in the whole thing. She said, you can't not build this school because my children don't have the framework, the energy, the time to homeschool even if they wanted. We're not in a single income world anymore. Both parents are working, and we need alternative options for parents who want to pursue that with an educational institute that shares their values. And so that grandma's passion really kind of sat in my soul and thought, okay, well, it may not work, but we got to at least try.
How do you get your arms around this? I mean, this seems like a huge undertaking.
It is massive. It's been 3 years in the making. And I think the genesis was probably COVID in our mind, in terms of when the schools closed down and shut down, and began talking with many dear friends who are teachers in the public education space, asking like, where did this happen? Why did this happen? How did this happen? And when we realized it wasn't the parents' decision, it wasn't the local board's decision, it wasn't principals or local superintendent's decision. The decision came from the centralized power that has become the bureaucratic state in Olympia, exercising a surprising and shocking amount of control over local school choices that kind of woke parents up to, well, when we say public school, I thought they meant local. But now they're making decisions that are potentially hurting my kids that I have no control over. That's a bit disconcerting. And so that's what kind of inaugurated the thinking process, I think, for us. And it's just been 3 years of praying, talking, wrestling, reading, studying, traveling, learning all we can, because I have never started a school before. So we have made and will continue to make lots of mistakes. And that's kind of what makes it a fun adventure.
Well, you've already announced plans to open next fall. Yep. So like about a year away from the school bell ringing for what we call Garden City Academy. Where would it be located?
Well, that was one of the challenges is you got to find a facility and space. And so we began talking with a local church here in our area, King's Orchard Church of Christ. And they shared a heart for Christian education, for loving children and families, and providing alternatives to just more education options, right? At the end of the day, we are pro-parents, and it's the parents' job and responsibility to make the best educational choices for the framework of their child, for their value set. And so it's not that we're like against one alternative. We want many alternatives for parents to have the freedom to make the choice as they should. And so this church shared that value, and they just happened to have this building they had built specifically for a school when the founders built this church almost 40 years ago. They had never been able to get there. And so our conversation became, would you want to sell the building, lease the building, partner? And though their congregation is older and getting older, they are young at heart. I mean, they are a vivacious bunch. And as we began talking, they said, we would love to stay around as a church and grow as a church. We think the Valley needs more churches, not less. Would you help us? And we're like, oh, we are all in. And so they went on the hunt, and they'd already been talking to a pastor. They have hired a young pastor. He's moving into the area. And our partnership is going to not only allow us to start a school in that space, but to help them replant, so to speak, their church. And so the lease expense that we're paying to the church, they're going to leverage and use to fund this pastor to come and work. And we're hoping that church grows, and they'll, of course, get lots of families come through their building every week, which is great for them. We'll have a space to start this school. And it's been a wonderful kind of big C church kingdom partnership. They've just been very, very wonderful to work with. We're excited to start there.
Now, I understand the goal is to have a much larger campus somewhere someday. So that's not the permanent
That's right.
location, correct?
Yep. Again, everything comes back to economics, I think, in terms of how it can work. And so finding buildings, property, and space to do this, it is quite challenging with a limited space in the Valley and zoning restrictions and things like that. And so we're talking with landowners. My gosh, if anybody's listening and has options, please contact us. We'd love to talk about ideas. But the dream is really a community center where we have an entrepreneurial think tank, a business incubator on site, sports facilities, performing arts center, a center for imagination, a video, radio, just a place that integrates local businesses with the education of our youth, bringing them together so they can kind of get a running start into their careers. And so we really envision a massive, one-of-a-kind community-making center. But the vision is we need 200,000 or 300,000 square feet of conditioned space, and we just can't build that. That's millions and millions of dollars. And so the vision, the goal is, and reserve the right to change this as we go, because we're making this all up as we go. The dream would be to campus the elementary schools, partnering with underutilized facilities, churches in the local area, Leavenworth, Cashmere, East Wenatchee, Wenatchee, maybe beyond that, who knows, who have a facility that could work for 100 kids, 50 kids, a couple hundred kids. They say, hey, we got a building that's free during the week. Let's partner with this. And then we centralize the secondary on that larger state-of-the-art campus. That's the vision for now. We'll see what provides as we go.
We're talking to Josh McPherson from Grace City Church. The Garden City Academy is been announced and would start enrolling kids for starting the school year next year. Let's talk a little bit more about curriculum.
Yeah.
I know that a private school has to be approved by the State Board of Education. So what would that process be like? I was looking online a little bit. You kind of have to get that accomplished by like next spring in order to start instructing kids next fall.
Yep. Yeah, it is actually quite complex in terms of the state regulations in relationship to education. And it just depends on kind of what route you go, which we're still looking into. Charter schools are not an option because there are actually quite a bit of regulatory strings that come attached to that in terms of worldview curriculum that would not align with our preferred worldview. And so it's going to be a distinctly private Christian school that allows us then the freedom to educate children freely, which we're grateful for. I'm not sure how much longer we'll have that right, but while we have, we're going to take advantage of it. And so when I say distinctly Christian, what I mean by that is because education is about worldview inculcation, right? And I think one of the myths is that education is neutral, right? It's like, well, 2 + 2 is 4 no matter who you are. Well, as a Christian, we would say, well, 2 + 2 is only 4 because that's how God's designed the world to work. And so every subject matter has kind of God as the starting point and center. So that's the perspective from which each subject would be taught. And then really the goal of the curriculum is to give the children a working framework to be able to be logical, common sense, rigorous thinkers and readers of truth, so that we wouldn't just read textbooks that have kind of maybe a prefab worldview woven into it where the kids might not even know that that's what they're absorbing, but rather raise the kids reading original source material. So let's not read a textbook that tells us what to think about Karl Marx. Let's read Karl Marx. And then let's talk about his worldview through the lens of logic, reason, common sense, the irrefutable evidence of history and how it's worked in other nations, and the biblical foundation of truth. And so really wanting to raise robust thinkers who are equipped to go into any field in society at any point in their life, equipped to think and discern and reason and succeed there as a logically thinking human being.
Will enrollment be open to everyone? How will you handle that? Do you have to be a member of Grace City Church to enroll a kid?
Oh yeah, no, not at all. It's a regional school for anybody and everybody. Obviously, we want to serve as many Christian families in local churches as possible. Obviously, it's open to anyone, but we have a very clear ethos and culture at the school that families would need to agree to. So if you come here, here's going to be the lifestyle agreement. Here's going to be the kind of culture. There's not going to be lying, cheating, disrespecting, bullying, these kind of things. If you violate that code, there will be consequences. And that's one maybe the fundamental differences between us and maybe the government state schools is that in the state of Washington, education is a constitutional right. And this may be controversial, but we actually think education is a privilege. And so if you treat it as a right, then you can act however you want and there's no consequences. But if it's a privilege, you can forego that privilege if you act in a way that disrupts the other's learning environment. So we want to protect an environment that creates the highest and best potential for everyone to learn, which means an environment of authority is respected and there's discipline when lines are crossed, and we're all rooting for each other by respecting authority and respecting each other and learning not just to memorize facts but to grow in our love for and ability to learn in general wherever we go in the world. So it is a distinctly Christian school with a distinct ethos and culture that we're clear about, and with that said, anyone and everyone's invited to come and participate in it if they want to agree to live and within those parameters that we've set.
So at Garden City Academy, there would be, I have to assume there would be tuition. You'd have to charge a tuition.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a pretty expensive proposition.
Yes,
so
it is.
Parents would have to help out with tuition.
Yep. And I think it's like, well, the comparison isn't, one school option is free with public schools and this option costs money with private school. Both cost money. One is just forced, the other is voluntary. So we're all funding the public school system with our property tax dollars, and which that's quite interesting. I'm going to reveal some of our research that we found on that in relationship to what's actually happening with those tax dollars. That isn't encouraging. But this is going to cost money, and that's the only way to get around it, and that can be very difficult. So our goal, Dave, is to make it as accessible as possible. For me, that's what I don't know how to say it. I didn't want to do it for a long time because the only way I could see it was to charge an amount I couldn't even afford to send my kids to. I'm like, well, I can't start a school that I can't afford to send my kids to. And so our goal is to build an economic mechanism with multiple streams of income where we're partnering with community-wide to provide a means by which parents have to pay and participate. There should be sacrifice in living according to our values, and what better way to spend dollars in money than to educate your children in your values and worldview. But then we want to invite more people to participate. So all of our teachers are going to be coming from other areas of life, and they're all going to be taking a significant pay cut. We want to pay as good as we can, but they could make more money somewhere else. But that's the sacrifice they're making. Grandparents are pitching in, aunts and uncles, local businesses that want to sponsor a school like this that they could see would produce a product that isn't questioning their gender, insecure about their identity, disgruntled with their country, thinking the world isn't a living, but rather students who are clear on who they are, understand why they're here, have read and understand history, both the wonderful things in our nation and the mistakes that we've made, so they can learn from them and know how to work hard and show up early and stay late and come back the next day and enjoy work because it's a gift from God no matter where they're at. And if businesses get excited about that, they could partner with the school. And so I'm rambling. Building all these different economic revenue streams, we could hopefully lower the cost of tuition so that, I'll put it this way, if the single mom of three couldn't send her kid to the school, then we failed somehow. And so that's our goal, to make it accessible to anybody who wants it and then work with them to get them there.
All right. We'll take a break here, come back with more. We're learning about just the newly announced Garden City Academy. And just real quick, I was looking at, you've even got some logos out. Notice that a couple of the logos, in addition to an acronym GCA, I noticed what I see, what looked like a kind of agricultural theme there.
Yes.
You've even got like a nickname, the farmers, right?
Yep, that's right.
What's the story behind that?
So we wanted a what do you call it? Not a motto,
A mascot?
a mascot. Thank you. That we could get behind. It was fun. It was original. I'm telling you, you have not done hard until you sat down and written out a name of mascots, and they're all taken. Football, college football, baseball, all the cool ones, all the ferocious animals, all the good ones are taken. So we're like, what are we going to do? And so I landed on Patriots. I'm like, oh, that's us. We're patriotic. We love our nation. We're going to raise hard workers. But when I say Patriots, you think of Tom Brady, Bill Belichick. Well, that's kind of East Coast. That's not us. So I was in Washington, D.C., walking from the Lincoln Memorial to the Washington Monument there, going, what's an alternative to Patriots? And it just hit me. Patriots is very specific to the East Coast because that's where it all went down. That's where they dumped the tea in the Boston Harbor, and that's where the shot heard around the world was first fired. That's where we established our nation's capital. That's not us. There was no 3-point Patriots out here. We were pioneers. We were homesteaders. What are we? And in that moment, it took me going all the way to Washington, D.C. to figure this out. Dave, we're farmers. That's who we are. That's what we do in this area. We took a dry, barren desert, and we harnessed the power of the life-giving river, and we turned this into one of the most productive farmland in our country. We're feeding literally people around the world with the wheat and the corn and the soft fruit farms. And it's like that really embodied our ethos. Hardworking, people of the earth, taking barren places, making them fruitful, simple but not simplistic, sophisticated in our efforts, and making things better wherever we go. So that the ethos of farmer, I think, really grabbed hold of who we want to be as a school.
All right, we'll take a break here. Back with more about Grace City. Well, and that's probably a great question.
Yeah.
It's not Grace City Academy, it's Garden City
That's right.
Academy. And that's probably a good question when we come back after the break with Josh McPherson on the agenda. All right, we're on the agenda talking about what's called Garden City Academy and Grace City Church pastor Josh McPherson. I wanted to call it Grace City Academy just because of there's too many G's and too many C's in there.
I know.
Eventually, you want to grow this if it could get that big and serve as many as a couple of thousand students. The vision is that big.
Absolutely. I mean, there's over 15,000 school-aged kids in our valley. Currently, there are 6 or 7 really great Christian schools in the valley. They have the capacity for less than 1,000 kids if all those were full. And we just know that there is more of a need right now in the community and a desire for that than is currently provided and offered. And so we're just trying to jump in the stream and be one of these Christian schools offering an alternative. CCA up on Western, Upper Valley Christian, Leavenworth, River Academy, south end of town. These are wonderful institutions doing great work. In fact, Mike Piccatoli is the new headmaster of River Academy. He's become a good friend. He's a good man, a good leader. And so we're just trying to throw our hat in the ring and go, hey, let's provide more opportunities for more kids and more parents than what they currently have. And so the dream is big, and we'll start small and see where it goes.
We'll touch on the plans that you've announced for the headmaster of Garden City Academy in just a moment. Someone commented and it had said, very disappointed how Josh kicked the school off with what I perceived as downgrading public school teachers who are trying to make a difference. And this person says, my daughter is one of those teachers. I wanted to give you a chance to respond to that. You seem to feel that the issue is the State Board of Education or the Department of Education, the governor, and not the inline teachers.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I'm glad she asked that, and so I could clarify. I would apologize if that was what was heard. And I understand that when something like this gets started, by nature of it appearing as if it's alternative to what's there, that then we are against that or hate it. Here's to clarify the concern. And I have had we have many public school educators in our church. I have some of my family, and to a man, to a woman, all of them have been in the last 3 years put in this horrible ethical and moral dilemma where they're being asked by the state bureaucracy of the OSPI, teachers unions, and part of education to essentially implement policies that violate their conscience. For example, if a student comes to a teacher, no matter what their position, if they're a Christian teacher or a non-Christian teacher, and says, I'm a boy, but I want to be a girl, don't tell my parents, that adult teacher knows that this is a decision that will radically impact that young child's life the rest of their life. They also know that there are many influences on that child's mind, from internet to social media to entertainment to peers, that might be clouding that decision. And what that child needs is that child's parent. But right now, as of this year, it's illegal for that teacher, counselor, coach, or admin to contact the parents with their concern of that child. And in fact, they're required to help that child pursue counseling and even hormonal therapy treatment to begin a road of permanent change in the life of that child. And for many, if not all the teachers I've talked to, that's forcing them to violate their conscience. That's not the position they ever wanted to be in. Their fundamental conviction is the parent is ultimate authority in this child's life. I'm here to support that and help that. Now I'm being put in a position I don't want to be in. That's a terrible thing to do to some of the best people in our valley, our teachers, our coaches, our admin. So I've spoken with hundreds, being an overstatement, dozens and dozens and dozens who are unsure what to do because they got into teaching because they love kids and they love their subject and they love passing that love on to these students. And now they're being kind of forced to be the front line of this social experiment that they don't agree with. And that puts them in a terrible, terrible place. And so our concern is that these decisions are being made by a centralized hierarchy, a state bureaucrat machine that's forcing teachers to violate their conscience. And this, I think, is a tragedy, Dave, is that we're asking our teachers who are raising and educating and shaping the minds of the next generation of Americans, we're asking them in that process to violate their First Amendment rights, which is to say what they think and believe, which I would argue for teachers' right to say whatever they believe, for whatever perspective that comes from, Muslim, Christian, atheist, agnostic, whatever. But to say, no, you can't say that, you have to say this. They're being handed a script they don't agree with, and that's violent. That's not the spirit of America. That says you can say what you can believe. You don't get punished for what you think in your head, and then we create a culture where we can put ideas on the table and wrestle with them and extend respect across the table for those that don't agree. That's what makes us stronger and better, not worse. And so to silence those people and say, no, you can only say this, we're not going to be better for that as a nation, no matter where you stand in relationship to your worldview. So to clarify, our heart is only one of thanks and gratefulness. In fact, at church on Sunday, a standing ovation for teachers in our valley. They are the best among us, and they're working in very, very challenging conditions. I had one teacher say, I knew I signed up for a tough gig, and I knew I signed up to walk into an alley fight with kids who were hurt and angry and struggling with depression and anxiety as a result of government lockdowns that no local teachers wanted. I signed up to walk into an alley fight, but I didn't know I was signed up to walk into that alley fight with my hands tied behind my back. I can't exercise discipline. I can't require respect for authority. I can't exercise the tools that teachers of the past have had in order to bring order to the classroom so there can be an environment where kids can learn. So by and large, my experience locally has been teachers are hurting, they're bleeding. Statistically, they're leaving education in droves, higher than ever before. And we're losing some of the best people among us that have given their life to invest in the next generation. And that's a tragedy because these are good people that need to be supported and loved, not cornered and bullied.
Well, we've run out of time. Garden City Academy. Josh McPherson here to tell us a little bit more about this plan. I know you're about to launch or talk about a capital campaign. We don't have any more time here in the hour. You'll be addressing that, I think, with the congregation, but we'll learn more as that all unfolds. Appreciate you being here today. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Dave. I appreciate it.